Hey everyone, National Master Steven Adams here. Today I want to share with you a tactical concept that arises due to a certain pattern. This is a tactic based on bishops on open files. Specifically, we're talking about situations where a bishop is on a file and it's undefended by a pawn. When the opponent has to defend the bishop with a piece, such as the king here, their position can start to have some problems. Like, for example, we're already threatening to capture the bishop and fork black on f7, right? Like if they just move the rook somewhere, we can absolutely take this bishop and then fork them. Or we can do it the other way around. If they play a move like pawn to h6, we can take on f7 and then take the bishop. So they're already having problems with this king then, the defensive piece being overloaded. So for that reason, my opponent moved their knight here to e5 to attack my bishop and to defend f7 to guard against that slew of threats. This creates new problems, however. As we said, the bishop is on d6. That's already an issue. That could be tactically vulnerable due to it only being defended once due to the king. But also, this bishop has a job to protect the knight. That means if the bishop's defended by a weak piece, and the knight's defended by a weak piece, well, suddenly we can start to see that this house of cards might start crumbling down. And we can see that the problem of having a bishop on open file kind of spreads like an infection in the black's position, right? The king has to defend the pawn, and the king has to defend the bishop, but also the bishop has to defend the knight. And with this many tactical liabilities, it's often possible to make this whole construction come toppling down. And here, due to the overloaded pieces, white does have a tactic here. So I'll give you a chance if you'd like to pause to look for it for a little bit. Okay, and I'll say it in 3, 2, 1. So the thing I did here and the way to take advantage of it, you can go rook takes d6. This is the right way. Because after king takes d6, how white can follow up, you can go knight c to e4, and we have a discovery then on this knight on e5. But after knight takes e4, knight takes e4, my opponent now really has an unpleasant choice, right? Because it's not just a discovery. They can go to c7, but then we take it with check, and this just looks completely unplayable. But they went to e7, but instead of even just taking the knight, which is certainly that might be good enough, but we might be a little bit concerned about b5 here in this pin. But instead, white has another extremely strong move here, if you want to look for it. So 3, 2, 1. Bishop a3. And this forced resignation from my opponent because really their only thing they have to move the king to e8. Then we can come in with knight d6, and then we're going to win the rook with check. So really this all started because we had this construction where this bishop were undefended. You might note actually if there were a pawn on c7, black would be completely fine here. But due to this bishop being on open file, only defended by the king, we can start to see that black had some tactical problems. And when you have a construction like this, if you see bishops on open files in your own games that are relegated to defensive tasks or that have to be defended themselves, a lot of times that those pieces can start to become tactically vulnerable. So I hope this helped, and maybe you can be on the lookout for this pattern in some of your own games.